Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer. Welcome back to F1 Manager 23, episode 61. We're late into the season, and of course, we have a lot of new female drivers that are in F3 this year that we've certainly been taking a look at as we are considering the future. The big discovery this year was not just a couple attributes, but really across the board. Most of the attributes, they're not all created equal, they have different impacts in different ways. And as we start really looking closely, certain combinations just absolutely don't work, and race pace is massive. And while Florsch is now a 70 overall, she lacks race pace. Really started to focus in on it here lately, but even when we focused in on it before, the attribute points kept going into other areas like adaptability, like smoothness, that obviously tire wear is a big one in the race, managing that. However, race pace is more important. It's still more important how quickly they get around the track. No matter how fast the car is, Floor still goes around the track slowly, is slow into braking. She brakes earlier than everybody else to make the corner. She's slow on reactions, so she exits the corner slower. But oh, right, the corner itself, she's poor on cornering. So she still doesn't even get the most out of the cornering. She's not maximizing what speed she can carry through a corner. All three add up to losing lap time. And no matter how good she is at overtaking or defending or preserving tires, none of those things matter if you can't get around the track quickly. And so, yes, she's a 70, but really she's 62. So we've been looking more heavily into these other drivers. Here's how they're performing so far in the F3 season. Now, for those unfamiliar who don't follow F3 closely enough, it's a spec series, meaning the cars are the same, but not all teams are created equal. Setups, team by team, are different. And some teams know how to set up a car well. Some teams have a much smaller budget, have a much smaller team, and it's a big and. It's not an or, it's definitely an and. Have weaker drivers. They have the rookies coming up. The ones that perform well move on to the bigger teams who spend more money, have bigger teams, make better setups, and ultimately have the little bit faster car and then have the better driver. And that gives a general spread in the field that looks fairly consistent. Driver impact, though, is pretty big. And that's where you generally see. With three-car teams, if one driver dominates the other two, it's pretty clear who has the better quality amongst drivers. And that's where they really start to establish themselves. That three-car team thing down in F3 is incredibly useful for establishing whether it's the driver or the machinery type thing. So looking first at just our female drivers, and I'm not paying much attention to what else is going on, but PHM Racing Charos, Sandrine Michelle. That's the weakest one in the pool in terms of quality. She's only a 47 overall, and she's last in F3 with one DNF. She's just behind one other teammate, though, who's also a 47, and their third teammate has only managed 5 points. The good news is the next one in the pool is already up at 26th in the standings. Krista Keller, 49 overall, so still not great, but she has managed to score some points with Genzer Motorsport, which is absolutely one of the other teams at the back of the grid, and she's second on her team. Jumped quite a bit up the order to Suzanne Hoffman, 52 overall, so we're starting to see that driver impact, that driver quality be a bit higher. She just scored 13 points in the last races for a decent team in Carlin. They're definitely up there as more of a mid-table kind of team. And is she the top for the team? She is. She's the top driver for the team. That's a good sign. Just ahead of her, equal on points, Angela Bianchi, a 55 overall in Campos, which is definitely a stronger team. Her problem is she's last place on her team. Betty Fallbush is 11th in the Drivers' Championship. She's the 58 overall. I think she's the highest rated one outside of our team, outside of Tanaka or Florsch. Fallbush has the first and only female victory that we have seen so far. It's also the only podium we've seen from a female driver so far. Meanwhile, Florsch no longer last in the driver's standings, though she still kind of is. She has overtaken Gota. So we had a regulation vote, and the regulation change that we were voting on was an increase to the cap by 5 million. I voted against it. I figured that, hey, we've managed to stay within the cap every single season, and it hasn't been that hard for us to do it. So raising the cap was a bad idea. Well, it ended up going 5-5, and the tiebreaker was to vote in favor. So the cap will rise by 5 million next year. Not a good thing for us. It allows others to spend more. Makes it that much harder to keep our vehicle at the top.
Konnichiwa from the Suzuka circuit in Japan. The home of Honda, Suzuka is an old-school circuit with high-speed straights and tight turns through the S's. At 130R, the track crosses over itself, then loops back around, giving drivers a sweeping expanse of track to challenge them. Drivers will battle it out this weekend on the snaking turns of Suzuka, the only figure-of-8 track in Formula One. High-speed downforce will be the name of the game here, if teams want to secure a place on that podium.
Qualifying has definitely been interesting, with Porsche taking pole, a Mercedes 2-3, the Red Bulls only 4-5 before you get to the Ferraris, and a lot of penalties. Crawford made Q3, it's going to hurt tire choice, but with a P9 start and probably P5 or better, possibly P4, but I would think there's going to be enough penalties in there to get to P5. Florsch, meanwhile, nearly made it out of Q1. She's only done that once or twice. So her starting from 16th, ahead of both Haas cars, ahead of both Alfa Romeos, who we've seen, that's the team we're directly competing with right now. We're 1 point behind them. If they're this far down, this is not a track where they have pace. What we're seeing is they seem to have straight line speed, top speed, but they don't have very good aerodynamics. And that would make sense here, where, okay, there's a little bit of long straight action here, but ultimately the S-curves, for example, are an area where the combination of aerodynamics is incredibly important to have pace through that first sector. Through the second sector, it's really just the third sector where you can get by without aerodynamics, and of course we have both. It's showing here, and ultimately it's not that hard of a track to drive. And so I think that the driver impact is less so here, and maybe it's showing. Can Florsch have a decent day? Can she compete near the edge of the points? And can Crawford have a really good high position start and hang on to it?
We're all good to go here in Japan with 53 laps around the Suzuka circuit. A chance to see just what Charles Leclerc can achieve here.
Starting P12, and probably starting to question what they can get out of this one. How much ground can they make up?
Right, let's get to it then. The drivers are warmed up, they're ready to go here at the Japanese Grand Prix. It's lights out and away we go.
We're racing, and I've got a bold strategy. Crawford has a wonderful starting position of P4. He's already managed to close off those behind him and is actually looking to challenge Verstappen ahead, but it looks like he's going to settle quickly into that P4 with Ocon and Verstappen, the only ones left battling. Porsche, the pole sitter, has gotten out first. That's the two Alpines just behind. There was definitely plenty of penalties around, hence the great starting position from 9th up to P4, which he's managed to hold on to. And then Florsch, she's starting from P13, so she's managed to move up a bit too. And like we already stated, she had a good qualifying, though she has had Albon dive up the inside. That's the one we don't want to diving up the inside. It's the Alfa Romeos. We'd like her to hold off. Yeah, here's the bold strategy call that I've aimed for today. For Flourish, we're going to go soft, medium, soft. I'm going to push on the medium stint to try to keep up the pace, burn through them a little bit faster, and spend more time on the soft compound. That should make us faster, and that's probably the fastest strategy available for the day. In addition, I've underfueled her by 2 full laps, and I don't normally do that with this in terms of total number of laps, this short of a race. It's a longer track, so we've underfueled by quite a bit, and as we finish the first lap of the race, you see she's already approaching 4 kilograms to recover. I will absolutely have to lift and coast unless we have multiple safety cars to get her under control, but I'm doing everything I can to give her the extra pace to try to hang on to a good position, to be able to try to hang on to the back end and get the DRS. There's only one DRS zone here, though, and have her stay competitive throughout the day. And then late on, we'll see if she can, hang on to something, but I'm trying really hard to avoid her being at the back of the grid. Meanwhile, with Crawford, I've gone with a bold strategy, again, of the soft, medium, soft, and pushing on the medium stint, but to a lesser extent. The big thing that we're doing with Crawford is that I went ahead and put his used softs on to start the race instead of having them come on for the final stint. I've got a brand new one for the final stint. I've got mediums early, and what we're going to end up doing is I've set us up to go for the undercut. You're going to be pitting possibly first of any car today, pitting on lap 16, coming out on the mediums, pushing, and then again potentially being the one who is pitting a little bit earlier for that final stint, giving us a chance to get a little bit of a head start on the others. We are finishing up lap number 2, and we are already starting to overheat, so that's definitely not a good idea, but we're right on the edge of that with both cars, really. And going natural, DRS enabled, and we've made it. Crawford hanging on to P4, Flourish dropped just the 1 position, and she's 1.3 ahead of Maloney at the moment. That could be really good for her race if she can hang on to that position and keep that gap and see that field stretch. Meanwhile, though, it could be an 11th sort of position, though Leclerc, I can see Leclerc getting around Sargent and dragging it back forward. When there's 50 laps, my tendency is to only underfuel by a single lap. When there's a 70-lap race, I will underfuel by 2 laps. When there's a 60-lap race, it'll depend on the track. Crawford, 1.5 behind the front 3, are pulling away, and we've got guys all over the back of us. Gasly gets around as a result with that DRS. Flourish is back up at P13. She's gotten around Albin, though Sainz has started to make his way through the field and started to pull these guys back into it. Flourish 1.8 behind Leclerc, so Leclerc moving forward. Flourish moving forward. She's P12. She's doing very well right now. That 2-lap worth of underfueling is giving her a lot of extra pace, also being on the softs. Is everybody on the softs? Not quite. Pourchaire's on the hards. Yikes, wow. That's a bold choice to start on the hards. And then mediums towards the back end, and they are definitely off the pace a little bit. But Crawford, the only one. Gio looks like he might be on. I don't know how Gio would have used tires. I think that can't be, right? That can't be. Anyway, gaps are opening. Norris and Crawford in that 5-6 position. Gasly's a little bit off, but then it's 2.5 seconds to Stroll. So there's definitely a gap there. And Flourish comfortable in the running for the 7 to 13 range with a pretty healthy gap to those behind. So she's looking really good on the competitive side right now for this race. And fuel recovery is definitely happening. But we've already entered our first pit window here with Crawford. And I'd say we're maybe 1% below where we want to be, and we're going to be right at 30% when we pit, so we do not want to be pushing anytime soon. But fuel recovery is already starting to happen. But we're 13 of 53 laps in. The race is going to go by really quick. With Sainz making his way forward, that's the last of the big movers. I'd say Flourish right now is in kind of an ideal position. I could see her potentially beating those 7 that are behind her. I can't see her beating anybody ahead of her except for maybe Sonoda. We got a yellow? It's Crawford. It's Crawford. Ran wide. Turn one.
So here we go, heading into
Hopefully
turn
not
one.
in the impactful area.
We've seen a few go off the track there. Fighting with the car, just a little perhaps.
Definitely lost some ground on that. We had a 3-second gap behind us. It's now half a second. So we lost a good 2 seconds on that one. We're at 33%. We've got 1 lap left to go. Well, 1.5 laps left to go on the stint, and we're at 32%. So we will just about make it to where we need to, but yeah, that couple second loss was not helpful. In the first to pit, 2 cars already went in. Bottas and Albon. 2.615. That's a really poor stop for our team, but that's still a pretty average stop compared to everybody else. So that's another factor that's going to go into, yeah, we're not looking great. Now the preparation here was to push throughout this stint. The expected tire wear is on the push. We're going to avoid overheating, so we will ease off at times, but the plan is to generally push. We do come out ahead of Bottas and Albon, and now Sargent, who is also pit. So we are 17th, but we're barely ahead of Bottas. So we backed ourselves up into a battle with somebody we had been comfortably ahead of before, but he didn't undercut us. Flores, don't you dare, Crawford. Oh, Crawford. Still getting up to temperature. Now we're going to have to re-overtake Bottas. Just getting into that temperature window. We do have the DRS here, and Crawford choosing not to challenge. He's brand new mediums and has a brand new set of softs for later. She's got brand new mediums and brand new softs for later. Better stop. That's more in our territory. It's still not a very good stop at 2.427. And she comes out. That was not Bottas and Crawford going by. That was Albon and Sargent going by. They have undercut her. She comes out 2 seconds behind them. We are seeing the undercut be effective. Crawford somehow is losing ground on Bottas, which doesn't make sense. Watch the right, and we go past all of them. We have undercut. We have undercut Verstappen. We have undercut Norris. This is not the position where you get the DRS. It's going to be after the chicane here. Detection. And there's the zone. It's weird that it starts, but easy overtake that time. A lot of extra pace compared to Albon. And we are back up into P5. And not everybody is pit yet. Ocon ahead of us has. Bottas is already worse on the mediums as he pit very early to gain the advantage that he gained. So we pit pretty early too, but you can see how much better we are. And Flores is P15 now after all of this. She's ahead of Stroll. Stroll was right behind Crawford, was he not? Yes, he was. Right? We were 3 seconds ahead of Stroll. And then we made the mistake. Stroll came up on us, and just before Crawford pit, Stroll had overtaken us. We were following Stroll as we entered the pits. Stroll stayed out too long, and now he's all the way back with Flores. The undercut, very effective here. Pourchaire is now the last driver out on track, which makes perfect sense as he started on the hards and clearly going for the one-stop strategy. Still has a 15-second lead, but Ocon has pulled away from us a little bit, but just 4 seconds. It's not bad on the gap there, but Verstappen has gone around. But if we can follow Verstappen, I mean, it is the Red Bull. He was ahead of us to begin with. He's on the hards right now, though, which means he's going to go the distance. If we can at least hang on, we can help pull us around the track. And if we're lucky, we can start to gap these guys a little bit. And Crawford not keeping up with Verstappen, already a second and a half behind, and Norris has managed to get around. So our lack of pace, their better pace. They had pulled away from us on the first stint, then we undercut them, and they've made their way back forward. But the undercut is effective. It's just not necessarily going to put you in a whole lot better state. We're not in the red, so we're not burning through the tires here. In fact, we're doing better than expected, right? Both of them are doing a little bit better than expected on the wear. And as he's still a ways ahead of us and we still have another pit stop to go, I think we have absolutely no chance of catching him today, or really any of these front four. So at best, I think we're racing for a P5. At best. Good. And the fuel's getting right pretty quick. Down to 1.1. You know, we recovered pretty quickly there with Flourish to give her a little something. And we've already overtaken Sargent. We caught and overtook Sargent. So Flourish up to P13. Things are going well. Can we get Sargent out of DRS range soon? It looks like yes, we can. If we can pull away a little bit, we can go back into our lift and coast for a little bit and get her a little closer to where she needs to be. Sonoda got past Sargent, closed right up on us. Let's ease off again. Crash involving multiple cars. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. What do we have?
Taking turn 6.
No.
Any room to maneuver.
Oh gosh, that was so close.
That's obviously far
That
from
was
intentional,
so close
but there
to
was
Flourish.
contact. I wouldn't be surprised if there
Sonoda
were a few words exchanged when they
does
get
the
back
run
to the
wide
paddock.
thing and rejoins the track in an unsafe manner. That should be a huge penalty for Sonoda. The Haas slams into the back of him and he rejoined right behind. Hello, optimal pit. We're gonna continue on. No, not yet. We still have that little bit of life left as we've been pushing. That's gonna help us with the softs not be so bad. We're gonna go one additional lap here for Crawford as the tire wear has held up a little bit. But yeah, Sonoda ends up crashing into one of the Haas cars and Piastri. With Sonoda out of the picture, Flourish is 4 seconds behind Stroll, 2 seconds ahead of Magnussen, and we need to both conserve and push for her. Hopefully no mistakes with the aggressive stance there. But Crawford into the pits, final time for him, and didn't put together a decent stop today. Both stops were 2.6s. Average for others, poor for us. Crawford, aggressive. This will be a regular stint, but good chance to undercut. Crawford is P14. We're behind Flourish. This far into the race, 36 laps. That pit stop has put us behind, so Crawford up to temperature, going standard, down to 0.9. Still need to get that little lift and coast as Flourish dives off into the pits. She's not the only one on pit road right now, as Bottas is there as well. Bottas held out a bit longer than one would expect. 2.6 for Flourish as well. Gosh, poor day for the team. One stop was a 2.4. That was on the slow side. And then 3 stops that were 2.6. At least there was no mistakes, but that was a little bit on the worrying side. Okay, down to Albin. Has just pit as well. So Albin has just pit as well. And we're already right up on the back of him. Bottas has already pit. There's our grid that's done. And there's a whole lot of, I don't think anybody else is going to pit left except for Gio. Sargent on 77% is going to have a hard time. But it looks like Gio's going to be the last one to pit, and then that's it. Everybody going the distance from here. Crawford's only P11, has work to do to get forward, but Flourish, can she double overtake Sargent? On 75%, it's going to be a sitting duck at one point. That's a good race for her, and it's been competitive, and we've already recovered a lot of that fuel. But Crawford, oh my, we've got some work to do. Stroll and Magnussen just ahead. We're coming up on them. We're going to probably need some help catching up. And now's a good time to get our lift and coast program going. We have caught up. We're going to need to make a push here at some point to overtake these guys, I think. I'm not sure we're going to have enough pace to just do it into a corner. Ooh, he's blocking right down the middle, and Crawford's not even making an attempt. It's like, oh, I'm going to drive down the middle. That's blocking you. You can't pass me. Oh, the overtake was on. Now it is on. Round spoon. Let's go. Just going normal. It's just pure pace. And we're into the points. We're into the points. We've got to get Magnussen here. Magnussen's easier. We have DRS. He doesn't. Stroll had DRS as well. And that is the easier overtake done. I think we'll have plenty of pace to be able to pull away from these guys. Gio has not pit yet, but Flourish is catching up to him. Let's get an eye on her attempt here to go forward. This is the same kind of overtake. This is where we want to make a push. Use the DRS. Push. Aggressive. Oh, he dives off into the pits anyway. We should have DRS. Inside a second now. Crawford. Push. Aggressive. Goes up the inside before turn 1, and we'll complete the overtake. And that is P8. That is P8. Okay. Back to conserve. 0.3. Flourish is 15th, by the way. Barely ahead of Zhou, and survived through the straights on her lifting coach. She's at 0.9 though. She's still got a little ways to go to get there, and she's very much on the lead lap. I mean, even Sonoda is still on the lead lap. Ocon is closing in on lapping him, but Flourish will not face any danger in that regard. It's 3 seconds to Gasly. We might still be able to catch Gasly and Leclerc, but certainly not anybody else. So at best, Crawford's looking at P6. Could very well be looking at the position we're in now of P8. Maloney's on the 52% used hards though, so if we're going to get somebody, it's like that's the one you can get. 0.5 now, almost there. Crawford's at 0.0. Yeah, Flourish overtakes Maloney. Well, Maloney was off track. Nice, P14. Great little race here, and Crawford has caught Leclerc and Gasly and has a positive delta, but doesn't have anything extra at this point. Lap 50, and we'll try to use it here. Not a great exit from the chicane, but can we get enough of a run? Looks like yes! Yes, we squeeze up the inside, and that's P7. That's P7. Back to neutral. Back to standard. Inside a second on Gasly. Next lap we'll use to try to close up on him. We got 3 laps to go, by the way. Flourish. Positive. Has made it. Positive delta. We got some overtakes done just in time, though Crawford had one more potential right ahead of us with Gasly. But with the safety car starting, that's it. We don't know what's happened. I didn't see anything pop up at the top. Sonoda. Of course it's Sonoda. Sonoda was driving a very, very broken vehicle and has broken it yet further. That's going to finish the race. P7, P14. Sonoda was last place or very close to it. The safety car is going to peel off for us to take the checkered flag, but there's no overtaking before the finish line, so the restart means absolutely nothing. It's going to be a P7 and a P14. Really good result. It did cost us 1 position, though, as Crawford almost certainly had Gasly covered. Flourish gets P14, though, which is a fantastic result. She was holding off Zhou Guanyu, so it seemed like she had that taken care of, especially when we had gotten the fuel right and didn't have to back off anymore. Ultimately, great result for the team today, though. It's good points. Alfa Romeo don't pick up any points. That's going to move us up to 7th. So 1-2 for Mercedes. And we missed out on a couple points there with the safety car. A lot of cars going for that one stopper and finding a way to make it work. And 2 stoppers still ultimately, did work out for us. I was surprised how many cars did not go for the 2 stopper. But you can see the 2 stopper worked. Flourish was 14th. Flourish got 14th that day. That is a fantastic result for her. Albon, that major undercut did work. That strong undercut really helped his position as he had been a ways back. But our bold strategy today did pay off, and we were the only ones to get in amongst the one-stoppers. If we had gone for the one-stopper, I don't think we would have been in the position we were in. I think Crawford probably would have been more around 10th place in this one. If he was going for the one-stopper, he just wouldn't have had the same sort of pace, wouldn't have been as competitive, and I enjoyed this more. So I think it was Good choice for us, and it did work out. I mean, we got solid points here. Crawford remains 12th, but we are definitely moving out of that tail end group towards the midfield pack. Yes, we do move up to 7th place now, 5 points ahead of Alfa Romeo. We were the last team to score points today, and we actually even gained ground on McLaren. Not that I think we're in any sort of contention with McLaren with 6 races to go. Like, that's so not happening. But if we can put a little ground between us and Alfa Romeo, P7 is perfect this season. I have Florsch and Tanaka both re-signed for next season, or at least for for Crawford. I decided I'm going to hang on to him for one more season. I'm not going to take another backward step. If I have to nerf Crawford, that's easy enough to do. I haven't scouted that next pool of drivers, the ones that are in that 76 kind of range, which there are now quite a few. There's quite a few that have developed this year from the 74, 75 range up into those upper 70s. I'm going to go ahead and give Crawford one additional full season, or at least that's the plan. Right now, he's resisting, and we're all the way up to a $3.1 million salary offer, where he was making 1.8 this year. Bumped him from a bonus threshold of 1st place to get a bonus to 10th place to get a bonus. He's finally content with that part. So the only sticking point now is the salary, and I'm only going to go so high on that. I'm not going to deal with him forever. I will, and I think I'm going to go ahead and do so now because it's already late September. We don't have that long to get this sorted out. He has no patience at the moment, as I just went through another round of offers with him. But I need to start scouting those guys in that 70-something range to find somebody who has that right balance. That's not going to be like a Gota, somebody who can have enough pace to be competitive and have the ability to compete, overtake, go forward, and hopefully not crash every other race. It's a tricky combination to get this far down, to get all of it, right? We're not ready to have Florsch take over as the leader. She just doesn't have the pace. She's not scoring the points, right? The big goal this season was to get her to score points 3 to 4 times. Last race, that's the most competitive she's been all year. Or she's done that twice, I guess. That's the 2 of the 3 to 4 times that she should have been in the points with the car we have. But she just doesn't have enough pace, really holding her back. But even though she's miles ahead of all the other females, some of them have a similar pace to her. And so I do feel like at some point it's still possible that this is not a lost cause. Florsch may never be the driver. She may not be the one that we're trying to get the championship with. It very well could be one of the other females in the pool who are way behind her on overall ability right now, but catching up and ultimately having better pace than her, being competitive and being able to get into the points. We don't need a ton of points. We can flounder at the back of the field for numerous seasons, but we've got to be able to get a female who can at least have enough pace to score occasional points so that we could get rid of the male driver and have an all-female team. We have the all-female staff now. We have 2 out of 3 drive positions filled by females. That's that last big turning point before it's all about just forward progression. But for now, it's just, it irks me that we can't get enough performance out of Florsch to take the time to allow another female to drive, to develop in that second seat. She may be our number 2 driver permanently. That was a tough pill to swallow for me this season, because I never had a hesitation. I never had a doubt in my mind that she would eventually get there. The way she was growing, the way she was developing, I always thought she was going to be our number 1 and stay our number 1. But that lack of lap pace just continues to hold her back in a way that I think the others could likely outdevelop her in pace. Maybe not in other areas, but in pace, and become really our lead driver. Regardless, though, that was a good race from Florsch, and coming out of that race weekend, she's now a 71 overall instead of a 70, so she is picking up some attributes. Oh, fingers crossed, let's hope that it's pace, as we'll see her next development update. I'm definitely not shifting to a one race per episode model yet. But as Flourish was competitive in that last race, as she was battling, as she was performing, I definitely went a lot slower pace than what I normally do in a race weekend. And therefore, this was a one race episode, and we're going to wrap it up here in just a moment after we have our driver development update, so we can see what's brought her into that 71 range. But we're still going to do 2 races more often than not, at least for the remainder of this season, and presumably next season as well, if we're still going to end up with a Crawford as a lead driver. And then at some point, I mean, like by the following season, we have to do something about that race seat. I don't think we can really afford to leave it any longer than one more year. Eventually we'll get to that one race being the standard per episode as we're really fighting to get into the points, or if we have bad weeks like, say, Monaco, where I don't think we're ever going to be strong in this series, you can bypass those ones pretty quick. But slowing the pace down because we're fighting for something that we desperately need, which is, the development of the female drivers, 2 females in the 2 cars, competing to get those points so we don't lose our job, to eventually compete for championships, right? There's going to be kind of a middle ground, and there's a lot to do. There's still a lot to do in this series. So slowing down to one episode is definitely not what I want to do long term. But if we can, the focus is the female drivers. And right now that is Flourish. And if she's competitive, if she's on the edge of the top 10, we need to take the time to let that happen, to go for it. And for Crawford, he's picked up 1 in braking and 1 in control, which is great. For Flourish, another point in cornering. That is more pace. Another point in smoothness. That's also good. And a point in reactions. That is a fantastic 3 points for Flourish. All going to have a positive impact. Her weakest attribute, that reaction, getting stronger. The second weakest, that cornering, getting stronger. And both of those are pace related. That's huge. And smoothness makes her better on tires, which is going to allow us to use a more aggressive race strategy to eke out a little more performance. So very good 3 points. As for Tanaka, 2 for smoothness. I mean, she needs it, but it didn't help her pace. But 2 for reactions. So 4 points there. 2 of them directly to pace, and 2 of them directly to, hey, it will impact race strategy and therefore impact pace. It's a secondary, yes, but it's not a bad one to have. So good development for both of our females this time. We'll definitely take that, but her cornering at a 48 is really bad. Well, that is going to do it for this episode, but I think it was a good one. We had a good performance by Crawford. We had a very good performance by Flourish. We had good development by Flourish and Tanaka. Car didn't get destroyed. Making good money. We now have 28 million, so we've got another facility upgrade on the verge. It will be the last one of the year as it's October. Yeah, this was a good one. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there, and bye for now.